Dear colleagues, I should like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this conference. And in my presentation, I want to tell you something about the work we are doing in the Netherlands in relation to the endangered languages of Russia. And I'm looking also for some examples on the Khanty and the Mansiysk language. My talk will be about, in the first place, the work that we do in the Mercator Center, then the two projects related to Witsen and Pallas, and the last part of the talk will be related to the work we have been doing in the last 20 years in the field of sound recordings and archives of sound recordings. I'm a fellow of the Mercator Center, where we are working on projects in relation to the minorities of Europe. You see this in the map. The main minorities of languages are here indicated, but since recently we also have data on languages in Russia, in particular the Nenets, Khanty and Selkup language in Yamal. These publications, the so-called regional dossiers, are providing a lot of information about this topic. And since recently, we edit them not only in English, but also in Russian. The main part of this work is also on the internet. It's in the database. You find a website here, and you can look at the database of all the publications, in particular these data on the endangered languages. So the next topic is the Witsen project, which is related to an old book published in the 18th century by Nicholas Witsen about North and East Tartary. Tartary was the name for the whole part of Eastern Eurasia, where the Russian Empire in that time was situated. Here you see the author of the book. It's Nicholas Witsen. He was the mayor of Amsterdam, and he had a lot of contact with Peter the Great when Peter the Great visited our country. And through these contacts with the Russian important people, Witsen could collect a lot of material which he published in his book. One of the things which he published was a very large map of the part of the world, which was very much unknown until that time. And he also put a few nice illustrations in the book. Here is one of the front pages, and here is a picture of a Monte Vogel family, which is also described in the book. And the interesting thing for us is the fact that more than 25 languages are recorded in the book. So, for instance, the Mansi language is represented in the text, namely the text of the Lord's Prayer, Otche Nash. And we have been working on these languages and produced a special book with the languages. Here you see a map where the regions of Eurasia are indicated from where Witsen got all his data. And in this book, you find the complete translation of Witsen's work. And the next book is a book on all the languages. The picture here gives an illustration of the website. The website can be found when you look for Witsen, North and East Tartary, and there you have all the details, the original book, the translation, and many annotations. In 2018, we finished this book, which is a special book about all the languages in North and East Tartary, where we have collaborated with specialists who know a lot about these languages. And the next part is also related to a historical book. It's a kind of dictionary which was produced in the time of Catherine the Great, who also took the initiative to make this word list of all kinds of languages of the world. there is a database of many of the languages, not only the languages of Russia, but also of other parts of the world. There were 296 concepts translated in 3,328 languages. Here you see, for instance, the word for house, dom, in various languages, in the Volgol dialects and in the Ostak dialect. And when we looked at the database, we found 7 dialects for the Khanty language and 4 dialects for the Mansi Volgol language. It's now a problem to do systematic searches in this large Palas database of more than 60,000 words, where you can systematically compare the various parts of it. So the historical dialects can be compared with each other, can be compared with the present day language, and that will be the task for the coming years when this database will also be available for the general public. We have a good collaboration with archives in St. Petersburg, where we hope to find the original data of Palas and can compare these data, these historical data, with the word list as they have been made. So I come to the next part of my talk, which is related to other archives, namely sound archives. This collaboration was in St. Petersburg with the university, and in particular with the Sound Archive, which is in the so-called Pushkinsky Dom located. And in this Pushkinsky Dom, a lot of interesting historical recordings on phonograms, the old Edison wax cylinders, are recorded, and we started several projects to reconstruct the data on these data and produce a catalog of these data and have them available in a digital way. Here's the publication we made of this catalog. And one of the examples is a recording made by Wolfgang Steinitz, a German researcher who worked in Siberia, who made recordings of the Khanty Ostiak language, and suddenly he had to leave the Soviet Union in 1937, leaving his recordings behind. He had a lot of written material which could be published, but the recordings on wax cylinders stayed in Russia, and we were able to reconstruct them, put them in the digital database of recordings. So we had several of these programs. One program is the Endangered Archive program of the British Library, and they gave us financial support for 2 specific projects, which are published in this book, which is called From Dust to Digital. It's the result of 10 years of the Endangered Archive program, and in the book you find a whole chapter on our work related to the reconstruction of these sound materials. One of the results is a large collection of sound recordings in private properties. So the private archives are can be very important, and they are certainly endangered if nothing happens. So what we did is collect this private material, and it is a total collection of more than 217 gigabytes of material on the various languages described on this slide. I was able to combine the work in the archives with a few field trips we made to the eastern parts of the Russian continent, so east, far east of Siberia, mainly on the island of Sakhalin. And my colleague Erich Kasten worked on Kamchatka, and we had several projects with the local languages. My work was related to the Ainu language and to the Nif language. We were looking for the Nif people when we had the Japanese expedition in 1990. And then we did fieldwork with the people, the Nif people living in the northern part of Sakhalin. We recorded these data. The speakers of Nif showed us their language. And in the present day situation is possible to compare the new material in digital databases with the old recordings, which were made more than 100 years ago. These these projects resulted in a few projects and a few publications, and he issued a few of them. The first was published in collaboration with my university, where Hidetoshi Shiraishi, a Japanese scholar who is now further working on Sakhalin, he wrote his dissertation in my university. He got the PhD in 2006, and now he's continuing the work and from time to time also visiting Sakhalin in order to continue. The Foundation for Siberian Cultures is more or less the institution where we have several of these databases available, digital library of a lot of literature and historical documents. So the people who have done research in the past have written interesting books. They are all in the digital library. And you can also have access to the recordings, which can be used for purposes of teaching the language to the local people who are still interested in the language, young people who are interested in, for instance, Itelmen, Nifk, and other languages. And this Foundation of Siberian Cultures is an institution where we continue the work which has been done in the last decennia together with Russian colleagues. So I finish here. I should like to thank you for your attention and have to finish now, stop sharing, and also stop the recording. Большое спасибо за внимание. Я очень благодарен, что у меня была возможность принять участие в этой конференции и желаю вам всего хорошего.